Hi, I'm Finn from Adasight, and we've helped 100 plus teams implement Amplitude. So, in the next 10 minutes, you'll learn what guides and surveys actually are and when to use them, how to set up your first guide in 5 minutes, and how to build a survey that actually gets you real answers. So, let's jump right in. Here we are in the Amplitude space. I'm using a partner demo for this video, but here you would actually see your Amplitude project. So before that we get into the content of the video, I just want to explain what Amplitude Guides and Surveys compose of and the three main components we'll be talking about today. So we've got the resource centers, which is in the AI assistant. You can find it here. So what are the resource center? It is the products help widget, essentially. It sits in the center of your app and users can click it anytime for help, announcements, or tutorials. Then we have guides. You can find it here in guides and surveys. You can click to guides. Guides are step-by-step walkthroughs or announcements triggered by user behavior. For example, a guide would show, welcome, here's how to create your first project for new users in your product. Then we have surveys. So surveys are quick questions targeted by specific events. Like, for example, targeting a survey to users who just canceled a subscription and you ask them why did they cancel that, right? So the magic in all three of this is the trigger logic and the targeting segments. So you decide exactly when these show up and who it shows up to. For example, you can decide things based on events that users complete, cohorts that they belong to, or pages that they visit. So let me show you how this works in practice. But before we dive into the demo, let's talk about when you'd actually use this. So for guides, you would use this when you launch a new feature and want to educate users. For example, here's our new dashboard. Users complete onboarding but don't know what to do next. So the guide would be like, try creating your first report, or a guide for you're making a breaking change, for example. Like, we're updating our pricing, here's the changes. So we've got like feature announcements and things like that. If you see here, once you create a guide, Amplitude comes with a couple of templates that are very easy for you to set up and also cover some use cases. For example, tour, announcement, checklist, banner, tooltip, and more. And when you actually create the guide inside Amplitude, you also get to choose if it comes over as a pin, a popover, or a modal, which are different UI elements for how the guide or survey shows up in Amplitude or in your project. So when would we use surveys? Surveys you want to use to understand drop-offs. So for example, a survey for users to understand what stopped them from completing checkout or checkout abandonment page. Maybe you're validating a hypothesis, for example, like would you use a dark mode? Or you want to measure user satisfaction. Then we have NPS ratings and things like that that are very doable in Amplitude surveys as well. As you can see here in Create Survey, you also have a couple of templates to go through if you don't want to create your own with user feedback, rating survey, NPS, banners. So it has a good variety for you. And then for resource centers, you want to use this when you have a persistent, essentially help widget that you want users to be able to access anytime throughout your entire product. So for example, you'd be replacing scattered documents or articles with centralized guidance. You want to be able to announce the updates without like spamming people's emails and things like that. So to follow along with this demo, you're going to need to have access to Amplitude or guides and surveys as well. It's not on the free tier, so make sure you check which tier that you're on as well. So let's go to Resource Center. I'm already here. I'm in my Amplitude workspace. We'll go to the recommendation sets. This is where you see what we've built. And then we have this one that I built a little bit before. So once you click the Resource Center, here is how it looks like in Amplitude. This is going to be pretty consistent throughout guides and surveys as well. There are blocks and sections that you can edit and create as you go, so very easy to get into even if you're not like a connoisseur on this stuff. So for example, here you would configure some branding, like upload your logo, maybe match your brand colors, but essentially in this content block here, you can link it to anything that you'd like. We can see here on the right that this is how the Resource Center would show up. So this is the UI widget for that. So documentation support, once a user clicks on this, that would lead them to eject to where you are linking this link to. For example, if you want users to book a demo, then for example, you'd input a page URL there. So you can add quick actions like this, add helpful links, and you can also embed guides and surveys here so that they're always accessible to your users. For example, I put a help center here, so you'd link that to your external help center. Book a demo could be a guide as well. And you can see that and set it up according to your build actions here. So you can see that there's some choices for you, like visit link, open a third-party chat, or embed a guide, a survey, open an article. If you're going to open an article, you can embed your articles actually natively in Amplitude. However, you must configure that in content, which you will see here under Resource Center. And then once you configure the article in content, you're able to call it through the Help Center by adding the article down there. And then once you click publish, you're done. And then setup is how Amplitude structures their targeting for the guide surveys or resource centers. You can see here, configure where to set up the page targeting, or all users or targeted users. Yeah. So let's go to the guides now. Let this load for a second. You'd want to choose a template that you're comfortable with, or just start a blank guide and then configure it from there. However, I made one called feature announcement already. So Amplitude has templates for feature announcements, onboarding flows, and tooltips. But for this demo, I'll create a simple feature announcement guide, which you can already see here. So this is the designing of your guide. You can see here that there's like the modal popover or pin, which are the UI elements that you'd want to change. I chose modal because it shows up in the center of the screen, which is good for like new big announcements that you don't want people to miss and that are not connected to like a small element that people might miss. So here you see that we've added a title, welcome to your new dashboard. We redesigned the analytics view. So here's what's new. You can add images or videos, many visual assets if you'd like it to be more interactive, which I truly do recommend. And then you add the CTA button as is. So learn more or got it. Once you click got it, I would say that the action would be to dismiss. So then after the user clicks got it, it will dissolve. If the user chooses to click learn more, then they would go forward. Here's where you would add an action that calls CSS selector or next path. Or you could also do a visit link where you enter the page URL that you want this guide to show up on. And then once the user clicks learn more, then it will direct the user to that URL specifically. So this would be on like the new dashboard URL essentially. And you can also preview this on mobile as well to see how it would look. And then we go to setup. So this is the targeting configuration. Here we're deciding who sees this guide, right? So we've got all users and targeted users here. For the sake of this demo, I think that I wanted to choose targeted users. So you can choose all users or find a specific cohort for people for this guide to show up to. For this example, I would want to use a cohort here that is like active users for the last 7 days, but we don't have that option. So I'll just show you targeted users and segment. But here you would find a button that says cohort, and then you would find the cohort that you want this guide to connect to. And then we have the trigger experience where you can set when this experience will show to a user. I chose on event tracked. So I would like this guide to show up when the event dashboard viewed is tracked, because this is a new update to the dashboard. So this is where the dashboard viewed event would be not available here. So I used this example. And then I'll set it to trigger as well on a specific page. Maybe you want to do the dashboard URL as well. And then with frequency, you just stop showing once they're already done. And after one occurrence, it only shows up once to not bother the user, essentially. Then you click publish and your guide is live. So next time a user in that cohort visits the dashboard, they'll see the message and be directed to that as well. What's interesting is that for guides, the use cases are literally endless. So you could have an onboarding guide show up for a difficult onboarding flow that you want, that you know users drop off at, targeted for new users to increase your conversion rate to sign up. Or maybe you're a SaaS business and you need your users to connect their payment accounts, and you can have a guide to prompt them to complete this step. If it's a key activation signal, right? That's going to be important. And also ensure engagement. Another use case is you can use guides to nudge behavior along key successful user flows or to prevent churn and address rage clicks, user confusion. Those are also things that Aptitude can detect and model a guide after. And then with the cohort targeting, you can go very, very specific, right? You can have cohorts that are like users who performed an action more than 3 times in your app, or users who have activated payment but not viewed the dashboard. So stuff like that. You can go as specific as you want or as general as you want and use all users in the Amplitude targeting. So for the next one, let's go to surveys. For the survey setup, I created one called Cart Abandonment Survey. You'll see here as it's loading. So this survey, I wanted to show up when users are abandoning the checkout flow in a product. So this survey will ask them what stopped you from completing your purchase, and then ask them to prompt a writing text there. So you can see here that the blocks are the same and that you could add actions and add blocks to go forward and things like that. So that's pretty much the same. And then you have the setup as well for the targeting. For me, I chose all users, but you could narrow this down to users who abandoned the cart for the first time or high value users to prioritize their feedback, for example. For the timing, I also chose on event tracked. This would be an event where they are on like the checkout page or have clicked like cancel the checkout page, for example. So you can be very specific as you want there. You click publish as usual, and then your survey is live. Now, every time someone abandons checkout, they'll see the survey. You'll start collecting feedback within hours, essentially. So that's the wrap. We went through the resource center, the guide, and the surveys. And I just want to stress that the power of guides and surveys is that it depends on the cohort. You can get very specific and be preventive with your user behavior or nudge them along very important things. So that makes your feedback very, very relevant and timely, which means higher response rates and better insights with your product analysis. So yeah, if there's any questions, please leave them in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.